Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and as always, it's great to have you here with us today. In case you don't already know, video versions of our podcasts are now also available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to put faces to the names, then head on over to Grow My Salon Business on YouTube and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. So with that said, on with today's episode. Now, my guest today is Australian salon owner Luke Reynolds, who's someone I've had the pleasure of working with over the last year. And today we're going to talk about some of the unique initiatives that he's put in place around team building and creating a salon culture. So in today's podcast, we're going to discuss why personal development goes hand in hand with professional development and why today's employee is more receptive to mindset and mental health in the workplace, as well as the impact that all this is having on his business and lots more. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Luke Reynolds.
Hi, Anthony. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I feel very honored to be a part of it. It's a podcast that I've listened to quite a few times myself. It feels great to be on the other side.
That's great. No, listen, it's fantastic to have you here. We know each other. We've had a lot of conversations, and this is something we haven't dug into that much, today's subject matter. So I'm really excited about it because I know that I'm going to learn a lot from your experience as well. Before we sort of dig into asking you questions, just to pre-frame what we are going to talk about for our audience, in one of our recent discussions, you mentioned to me that you had a life coach that you bring in just for the team. And you just happened to drop into our call that he was about to do a session with the rest of your team as a life coach. And I was really intrigued about that. And that was really the catalyst for me wanting you to come on to the show today, because I know that you do a lot of stuff in this area. If I can sort of pass that over to you and ask you to talk to me or talk to our audience and explain to us what that's all about and why you do that.
Sure, I'd love to share. It's an initiative that at the salon we put in probably 12 months or more ago, and it has been working so well. It's just an incredible initiative, and it's something that we're really, really proud of. So one of my best mates, Anthony Equine, is a life coach. He's had many careers. He's spent most of his life in the sporting realm. He was a world aerobics champion. He then was a professional dancer. He's danced in the Moulin Rouge and lived in Paris and had a dance school here on the Gold Coast in Australia. And then after that, he moved into the public speaking space. So he's done a TED Talk. He's one of the most inspirational people I know. I respect him a lot professionally, but he's also one of my best mates. So we have a laugh and we can carry on like idiots together as well, which is really, really lovely. But about a year, I think it must be 2 years ago, we were actually at a charity race day and we'd had a few wines, and we were having a conversation around people and teams of the like. And he said to me, have you ever thought of doing anything in that space of around, the team building and doing some work with them on more of a personal level rather than all of your training, which obviously we do a lot of training in the salon, but a lot of that is based, obviously skill-based around our industry and their careers. And obviously my answer was no. And he said, well, I've got a really great idea. How about I come in and I do some sessions with your team so that we can get a stronger, more cohesive team. And I think in that instance, I was talking to him about I was having trouble with some of the team in that instilling confidence into them, and that was really coming through in their training and in their work. So I wanted to try and figure out a way that I could weave something into the training or something that we could do operationally as a business that would then help each individual team member grow as a person and give them more confidence so that then they can have that confidence on the floor and in training, and I guess where I'm coming from on that note specifically was apprentices that were coming through that suffered from anxiety and maybe a bit of depression. And as we know, mental health is such a prevalent issue in today's society. It was something that I really wanted to work on, one, something that I wanted to provide for my team, two, and something that I really thought that would, through doing that and having that whole approach, would then benefit the salon in the long run.
Okay. So what sort of things does he actually do? So these are they 1 hour sessions once a month?
Yes. So Anthony comes in once a month on a Wednesday morning. So we always have our training in the salon on a Wednesday morning. And all of the apprentice team are trained in salon every Wednesday morning, and as well as some of the senior team. But then once a month, we put the whole team together, and they actually run a program called I Can Achieve, which is part of Anthony's life coaching program that he does with individuals and teams and corporate groups and all of those sorts of things that he also, and part of that is also his public speaking. So he comes in once a month, and the main framework around it really, and the end result that we're trying to achieve, is basically helping the staff achieve more confidence in themselves and in their personal life. They feel more confident in the workplace, and that filters through. So one week you might be working on goal setting with them, for example, but most of it is related with around their personal life. So sometimes it might be about financial, setting goals for anything in life that they want to get better at. So sometimes he might talk about behaviors, or he might talk about fears, or he might talk about all sorts of things, right. And gets them to actually set goals. And then they go around the table, and all of the staff members, they all talk openly and honestly in front of each other, then also builds team rapport, and he facilitates that session with them.
Okay. So it's very much sort of personal development, not talking about in the salon, but there's obviously that knock on, because if you're talking about goal setting and confidence, you can see from a salon owner's perspective that can have impact on people, talking more confidently about services that you offer, or retail, for example, or just being more confident doing consultations, or maybe even more confident dealing with conflict within the salon, whether it's with another staff member or potentially even with a client. So lots of good things have come out of that. Any particular example, any sort of little anecdote you've got that you could sort of link into maybe how someone has grown through something like that, and you've seen a really good turnaround with them?
Yeah, I would definitely have to say that would be our younger team. So the apprentice team, and especially those apprentices that are nearing the end of their apprenticeship and needing to make that transition into being a stylist. The pressure is starting to be applied to them that they need to be consulting their clients and actually having communicating and having those really formal conversations with a client who may be much older than them, or come from a different walk of life, or have that difference of I think some of the younger people coming through these days are not amazing at communicating face to face with another adult. So that's probably the area that we've noticed the biggest difference is with the junior team, communication, and then having the ability and the confidence to speak to anybody who walks through, any client who walks through the salon door. We have some very high profile clients coming into the salon. Sometimes when they start, they see these people walking in the door and they're intimidated, and you can see that they're not really confident to walk up and introduce themselves and gown them up or bring them through to a chair or whatever it may be. But the difference that we see from when an apprentice comes into the salon, and then as they grow, I think that growth that we see within the apprentices and within the young people in the team, and I've had firsthand feedback from clients directly about that, about how much they've grown and how fantastic they are, and they have given us feedback about it's amazing what you do for them, and it's obvious that you're supporting them really well, because you can see the growth that they've had through that they've been working for you. Yeah,
that's fantastic. One thing I was thinking about as you were talking is that when you do stuff with a life coach. For a lot of these, I don't want to say the word kids, for young people that are working in the salon, they perhaps have never had any exposure to
100%.
coaching, to anything personal development. Face it, a lot of them are very young when they first walk in the door to start work there. And so when they're first exposed to this, it must be a bit of a head trip for some of them. And in fact, I'm going to say that maybe some of them feel very vulnerable. Have you got anything to say about that? Is it I'm sure if Anthony, so just so that the listeners are aware, this coach happens to be called Anthony as well. So when Anthony is doing the coaching session, I'm sure he's very adept at handling that so that it isn't so that it is a vulnerable space, but isn't a vulnerable space, because sometimes it's good to be vulnerable, isn't it? And to be open to questioning how you think about what you do and why you do it, etc. Have you got anything about that you could sort of add to that part of that conversation?
Sure. As I kind of have just touched on, I think that's part of the amazing part about it, is that we're getting these young, vulnerable kids coming through. Sorry, I shouldn't call them kids, but young people coming into the salon and some of them have definitely come from underprivileged backgrounds. Some of them haven't finished school. Some of them have had, some of them that can't really read or write very well. And so we really love the opportunity of nurturing those young people and providing these sorts of things for them and these sorts of programs, because then once you see that growth in them, it's just remarkable and it's really rewarding. Yeah. So some of them are very vulnerable. We've got a young apprentice at the moment who's been with us only a couple of months, and he's a really lovely young man, but he's so introverted, but super creative. So we're working really a lot with him at the moment and just trying to nurture him and get him to feel comfortable to open up a little bit more and to speak and to communicate a little bit more. He's 16, just turned 17. The staff in the salon range from he's our youngest right up to 52. There's a wide age range of people that he needs to communicate within the salon. But over the couple of months he's been with us, you can see the difference already. He's a different tone in his voice. He's got a different projection level in his voice. And sure, it must be really confronting when they come in and we go, right, next Wednesday, you've got a life coaching session. But I think the fact that it's in a group situation, Anthony has children himself, so he's very nurturing and he's really lovely, and has a real ability to work with kind of anybody and everybody. And I think in that group situation, I don't think it's really pushed if they don't want to share. And I think that you'd find it's something that in their first one, they may not share as much. And then as they go along, they get more comfortable, they start sharing more and more. And most of the time when I arrive at work, they come up to me and they're just like, oh my God, thank you so much. That was so amazing. Because as I said before, sorry.
Well, no, that's what I was going to ask you. So just so the audience knows, you don't attend these sessions on purpose. You were just about to talk about that, but I just wanted to make sure that to pre-frame that you actually aren't in those sessions. Very consciously, you decided not to be in there. So I want you to tell me about why you decided that and what sort of impact it has when you do walk in the door, like you just started to say then.
Actually, to be completely honest and upfront with you, it actually wasn't my decision. It was a requested decision of Anthony's as the coach. And we wanted to make these sessions about them, not about me. We wanted to make it about them, not about the business. We wanted to provide something for the team that was really all about them. And upon Anthony's request, as a coach and a professional life coach, he said, the reason being is that they will share more and feel more comfortable without the boss or that hierarchical figure around. It's a lot more of a safer space because this isn't about team building. It's about them personally and building them up as a person within the team. So it's something that's solely for the team and for the team only. And so I have followed through with that. And you just mentioned as I walk into the salon after every session, which will be tomorrow morning. There's actually one tomorrow morning, so I get a nice little sleep in, which is good. But I walk in and they're all just glowing and got a smile from ear to ear. Sometimes there's emotion, sometimes there's all different sorts of things, because depending on what they've worked on, they could be really motivated, or they could be experiencing a bit of fear, or they, but whatever that feeling is that they're experiencing, it's a growth feeling, which is really great. And quite often when I walk in, they thank me for providing such a great opportunity for them, because most of them would never have the opportunity or the affordability to go and work with a life coach, let alone even take that step by themselves. So it's about creating that safe space and trying to help them grow as individuals as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on, I don't know how consciously you said it, but you said that Anthony said it is not a team building thing, it's about building them up within the team. And I think that's a really interesting, it's made me stop and think about that. That is a really important thing to do. And as you just said, like in any salon, anywhere in the world, you get a very diverse group of people who haven't all come from the best or haven't all had the best start in life. And so to give people the opportunity for personal development, for some inward looking stuff as part of their education is a great thing to do. So that's fantastic. I know you said to me at one point, that he couldn't make it 1 month. So he sent in another friend of his who was a therapist who specialized in sound healing and meditation. And that sounds very interesting. So talk to us about that one. How did that one go down? Because that's a very different sort of theme to run with, but still along the same lines of it being personal development and learning to understand more about yourself and how you fit on in the world.
Yes, that was that was the last month actually. And Anthony was busy, so I wasn't able to attend. He was actually away doing another job. He floated this idea with me of a really gorgeous young yoga instructor by the name of Aiko, who used to live in New York, has moved back out to Australia, and she's got a yoga studio, and she also specializes in meditation and sound healing. And I thought, what a great idea, because the atmosphere that we generally work in day to day is very hustle bustle. We're a very busy salon, dealing with stress. It's something too that I think quite often will come up in a staff meeting is, how stressed everyone gets when we're super busy and everyone's booked out and people start running late. And so we thought, okay, how can we give them some tools to remain calm in those moments? Because there's people on the team, like obviously myself and some of the premier stylists and some of the lead stylists and colorists who have been in this industry for a very long time. And we know how to cope with those situations. Sometimes we get flustered as well, and that's okay. But as a lot of the younger team coming into the industry, they're just like, whoa, what do I do? And I think a lot of young people today don't cope with stress very well. We created a meditation and sound healing session. So instead of Anthony, Aiko took them for an hour and she taught them how to meditate. So they did a big group meditation together. And then she went through a sound healing exercise, which she has these beautiful big glass bowls that are sound healing bowls. And there's this beautiful music playing and she runs an instrument around them. And it sounds almost like a bit of an orchestra, but was really, really beautiful to watch. I don't think I've ever seen my team sit so still in my life. So I snuck out of the office a couple of times. I was there early. I was actually in a meeting in the office and took some video recordings so that we could use it for our records. But it was really beautiful. And my God, the staff loved it so much they've requested to do it again. So she's coming back at some point, and with the request of the team have asked me to come to the next session as well, so we can do a whole group meditation and relaxation session. So that happened before work. So by the time they started work, they were all relaxed, and it was a huge success.
What sort of impact is this sort of thing having on the team, on the salon during the day? What sort of impacts are having?
We have a very strong, communicative, cohesive team. We, I think, have the ability to talk just about anything through. We have very, very little, if any, conflict in the salon, which is really fantastic. It's a really respectful environment. Everyone is happy. We have a really happy team. We have a very low attrition rate. Just a very successful kind of high functioning team, which I think is really, really fantastic. And I think that's probably the best part of it. And something that, you're giving back to the team and they love it, and they are happy and think that it's a really great place to work, which I tend to have to agree. And I got direct feedback on that recently, actually. It was actually at the end of one of Anthony's sessions, must have been 2 or 3 sessions ago. The salon was obviously closed, and there was a client waiting outside when I arrived at work. And I was just about to walk in the door, and I had said to her, "I'm sorry, the meeting's obviously just running a bit over. They won't be long." She's like, "Absolutely no problem." She goes, "But can I just speak to you for a minute?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem." So I went over and I said, "Oh, what is it?" And she said, "I actually would just really love to give you a compliment, if I may." And I said, "Oh, sure." And she was a new client of a new stylist, so hadn't been at the salon long, but had had several visits. And she said to me, "I'm not sure if you're aware, but I just wanted to let you know how happy your team are." And I said, "Oh, thank you very much." I said, "That's amazing feedback." And she said, "Obviously, I'm a new client. I've only been a few times. And the vibe in your salon is just really beautiful. And it's really nice to walk into. It's really friendly. It's really welcoming. And all of your team are really happy and they speak really highly of you. I just think you need to know that." And so then I walked through the door with a smile like a big Cheshire cat, just happy as Larry, thinking, it's really nice to get that feedback. And we don't always, as business owners and leaders, get that feedback. So when it's completely off the cuff, and that was really cool. So I know what we're doing is working. It's very hard to make it tangibly or to tangibly kind of go, okay, it's working for XYZ reasons. It's just part of, I guess, a wholesome team, that building kind of scenario that, that we put into the business, and it's become part of the business. And I guess, to be completely honest, it became part of the business organically, but we've just really run with it because we're getting so much success from it.
No, but it's very interesting, the culture that it's creating within the business. And it's a really good example of, you just said it just happened organically. And I must admit, it's a while since I had my salons, but we did something a little bit similar. We didn't do it every month with the same person or whatever, but we had, it first of all started with a stylist of mine. In fact, he was a colorist, and he had problems with his shoulders and his back. And one of his clients was a teacher of the Alexander technique. And so his client was talking to him about posture and how he should hold himself and whatever, so that, his body would last as a standing behind a chair colorist. And he absolutely loved it. So we did exactly what you've just talked about, in that we got her to come in and do a class for the whole salon. Because all of us, every job can be stressful and put strain on your body in different ways. In the context of a hairdresser, doing blow dries all the time, it is obviously, or even cutting hair all the time in terms of RSI, etc. All of these things can put pressure points on your body and things wear out quicker. And shoulders is one of those things, for colorists and hairdressers, full stop. And that went down a treat when we had her come in and do Alexander technique class. And all of the people that I used to do this with, because I had another one who was a real estate agent, and he came in and did a talk to all of my team about what you needed to do to get on the property ladder, how much of a deposit you needed, and, just sort of gave them the sort of 101 of getting into property. And then another one was a financial controller, and she came in, spoke to all the team about really simple things like credit card debt and why you need to avoid it, and how those compounding interest rates can destroy your credit reference and all this sort of stuff. And so I think that what you're doing is fantastic, stepping outside the realm of, it's not just about going to a hair show and learning another haircut or another color technique. It's about building the person, the complete person. And I think that is a really important thing to do. And dare I say, I even think it's more important at the moment, more than ever, because we're in this era of a lot of people transitioning from working in an employee-based salon for sort of thinking, well, I can just do this by myself. But if you're doing what you're doing, which is creating this great culture that is about more than just doing hair, but it's about, wow, what a great place to work, then you're bringing a lot of other benefits to why you might want to be an employee as opposed to self-employed. So have you got anything to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important, and I could not agree with you more than it's more important than ever these days to really create that culture and community. And I think we, hands down, have probably the best salon culture that I've ever known, or that is going around. And I'm really proud of that. And I think the community side of it is really valuable as well, because you're giving them a place where they feel comfortable and it's really great community and they're happy to come to work every day. And, the whole, training on a professional level in hairdressing, we can do all of that. That's fine. But this is just something that just adds that extra layer of really getting that staff advocacy, where somewhere where they really want to work and they really, belong, and they know that we care about them. So you get lots of longevity, and if ever, you need anything from them, they're really happy to do it because it's giving, right?
Good. Okay, that's fantastic. I know that you also told me, in this conversation we were having, that you had taken them on a team building day, and it was all about equine therapy. And I know that you're really into your horses, and you're very into horses and polo and all that sort of stuff. And that you said to me that you'd bought at an auction a team building day that was all around equine therapy. And I went on and had a look at the website that you were referring me to, and it was very, very interesting, that whole thing. Talk to us about that one. What was the goal there? You got them out of the salon, you took them off to wherever it was, and this whole thing about working with animals and stuff, I was very intrigued by that.
Yeah, it was a fantastic day. But I will just, before I get into that, I'll just explain. So once a quarter, we have what we call a team building day, which it's not normally based around, or it's not normally educational. It's more normally, about the team and about them, kind of with a bit more of a social aspect. So we might go and do an escape room together, or, there might be a team building kind of element of it. And then we might go for lunch, or there's all sorts of different things and that's generally something that I put back onto the team. And I say, right, you guys need to organize it. I'll turn up with my credit card and we'll go from there. But it's more, again, it's about them and about them spending the day together, where it's not so heavily educational based, where it's more about them having a bit of fun and spending some time together that's not in the salon. There's an interesting, beautiful full circle here. So the charity race day that I was at was for a charity that I do some work with too, for domestic violence against women. And it's a charity that we've supported quite a lot over the last couple of years, and then also to the LGBTIQ domestic violence one as well. So we've donated lots of prizes and we've been sponsors. And so this race day, we sponsored the race day. And so I was at the race day and then had a few too many champagnes and started bidding at the auction. And so that's where, and I bought this because I thought, well, if I'm going to buy an auction piece that is going to make a contribution towards domestic violence, I was very lucky that it was something that then I could also get the beneficial use out of for the team. And I'd heard about equine therapy before. Years ago, I was at a health retreat called Gwingana on the Gold Coast in Australia. And they had equine therapy there. And because I used to ride horses professionally, and I play polo, so I've had a lot to do with horses over my life. I thought, I won't do that because I don't see the use. I know horses, kind of thing. And then everyone kept coming back in when I was at this health retreat to dinner or to lunch or to whatever it was, saying, oh my God, it was so amazing. It was so incredible. And I was like, oh God, I wish I had have done that. So years later, when this prize came up, or this auction piece came up, I thought, great, I'll grab that. And so the time finally came, and a couple of weeks ago for the team building, I took the team out, and some of them had never even touched a horse before, or a few of them were petrified or scared of horses and everything. Generally, the audience, it's a very, they get corporate audiences, they get all sorts of things. But more importantly, they also run some very, very fantastic programs through this company for underprivileged youths that have been, or children that have been the witness of domestic violence, who have been in violent families, all of those sorts of things. And they run programs for young men trying to stop domestic violence at a root level. And I was very fortunate to learn that the amount of money that I purchased this auction item for was able to put 8 of these underprivileged youths through the program, through this real bit. So that was a really lovely little extra gain to it. But back to my team. So equine therapy, the basic sort of form of it is that horses are a pack animal. And so your relationship is built on trust. And there's always a leader of the pack and a follower and then team members. So it reflects very, very directly into communication styles, all sorts of things within the team. And it worked really well. So you go in and a couple of the team were shaking like leaves because they hadn't touched a horse before, or they were scared of horses, or whatever it was. One in particular was literally visibly shaking. And then within a couple of 10 minutes, she was brushing the horse and patting it. And there was just this really amazing, her and the horse and with everything. And then that then is her becoming a fear, which then provides internal growth. And it was really remarkable. And there were lots of really beautiful little moments like that where, at first everyone was really scared and really tentative. And then by the end of it, everyone was just so happy, and because they had achieved things. So then what happens is then you then have to break down into groups, and then each group is given a horse. It's about the team communicating. So you've got to use really good communication methods between the team. And then you have to then instruct the horse to go through obstacle courses and do particular things and particular exercises.
Without riding it. You're not riding it.
And you're just leading the horse.
Okay. Yeah.
But without explaining the whole thing, because that would take forever.
Sure, yeah.
It's about leading the horse, because our horse will only follow someone it trusts.
Yes. Okay.
So it's all about, it all comes down to basically to trust and communication. And communication style and energy. And so once you had guided the horses through, the horses would only go with you and allow you to guide them through these obstacles if they trusted you and you were communicating clearly.
Yeah.
I guess that was the basis of it. Then the facilitators blindfolded one of the people in each team that was actually physically leading the horse. And then there was another whole level of communication that needed to happen, and the vulnerability of the person that was blindfolded. And then they needed to trust in their team and the horse and be guided through these exercises. And the breakthroughs that happened in those moments were really, really incredible. And then at the end, everyone regrouped, and they basically we discussed as a group, what came up for you? Was it, accountability? Was it trust? Was it communication? What was it? What were your key words? And they had a whiteboard full of words, and you were able to pick the words that most reflected with you, and then explain back to the group what you got out of it and what it meant for you. Yeah.
That's
and
fantastic.
So it was really incredible.
Yeah, it sounds it. I know.
Then we had lunch afterwards. So
I know that when we spoke about this, I happened to mention to you that my favorite TV program at the time was Yellowstone. Yes. And that I weren't naturally a great, horsey person. But if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Yellowstone, do yourself a favor and watch it. It's the most amazing TV series.
Amazing.
But the thing that I really fell in love with horses watching that, because they are such beautiful creatures. And You have to watch the Yellowstone to understand what it is I'm talking about here. But there was a particular scene in there, and I was just Googling this while you were talking. So I hope you didn't think I was just checking my email or something.
Notice you went this.
No, I Googled it because I couldn't think of her name. And, his daughter, Beth Dutton, she was a fantastic character. I absolutely adored her in the show. And she had a problem with horses. And there was a particular scene in there where she jumped on a horse and the horse was completely lacking in what you just said. There was zero trust between her and the horse, and she was getting quite angry with the horse. And this cowboy came along and he started talking to her about how to connect and relate to the horse and what she's doing psychologically, negatively, that's impacting on that horse. And I just listened to it. I can't remember the exact words now, but I just thought, oh my God, that is amazing. I mean, there was another movie years ago, I think it might have even been called The Horse Whisperer, but it was just that ability to have that degree of intuition and empathy. And like you said, all those things that came out of it, the words that you had on the whiteboard, it's about trust, it's about communication, it's about not being afraid to lead, it's about all these other things. I mean, they're just as relevant in a salon situation. And so it's good sometimes when you can learn while you're having fun, while you're in a completely different environment at the same time, because it gives you the lesson at a much deeper, more connected, emotional level, so to speak. Yeah, I think that's amazing. So what else have you got planned? What other events are you going to take people on?
The next one that I can think of, obviously my wonderful manager, Rachel, organizes most of it. I think the next one is actually a real social event, and we're just going to Eat Street Markets, which is for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like a marketplace with a whole bunch of food vendors, and you can hire like your own kind of container, and with, has a dining space, and there's all different types of food from all over the world, and so you can we can just go eat and have a few drinks, and so it's a lot more of a social one where it's purely social based,
but it's also exploring, isn't it? Because you're exploring different cultures, different foods, and mixing with your team at a different level, because what people are like and the sort of hierarchy that exists on the salon level can be very different to them when you're all out socially. People can have different personalities that come out, etc., can't they?
They can, 100%. And we quite often find that. And I think sometimes too, they really enjoy doing something social with me. Obviously at work, I'm boss man, I'm super busy, both running the business, running a full column, trying to wear however many hats at once. So
Luke, they like doing it socially with you because you have the credit card. So
this is true.
That's why they like it. Don't worry. So listen, look, this has been fantastic. There's been so many good things here that I don't want to dilute by talking about another subject. And I would, if you're up for it, I'd love to do another podcast with you. We'll give it a few weeks, but I'd love to do another podcast because you have recently expanded a salon, and you've closed down one and you've moved into a much bigger and better space. And I've been privileged to sort of be on that journey with you over the last 12 months. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a very interesting, insightful journey. And I think that you would have a lot to share about that as well. But I don't want to rush that and try and cram it in 10 minutes, because there's a lot of really good things that have happened during that. So if you're up for it, are you up for it? We can do another podcast further down the line.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back on again, because there's a lot to go through there. I agree with you.
Good.
And I'm glad you had fun while I was the most stressed I've ever been in my life. Just throw that in there.
Yeah. Well, you didn't always show it, okay? So that there were maybe moments. Well, listen, I think it's all about, we won't start that conversation now, but it's all about change, and it's all about, there's a risk involved, huge financial risk, huge amount of uncertainty. There's lots that can go wrong. And for you, there's lots that's gone right. I mean, you've had a few ups and downs during the process, but where you are now compared to where you were a year ago is a very different place. On that note, I'll leave that, and we'll pick up on this and do another episode about your salon, because it's a beautiful salon. You've done a fantastic job of it. And I think there's a natural fit with this great salon. And why you've been able to afford to do it, and why you're attracting and keeping good staff with the culture that you are developing and have developed. I think the two things are sort of, hand in glove. So I'll leave that there for now. But before we do that, whereabouts can people connect with you on Instagram or any other social media channels if they want to, just follow you, check out your salon, or even find out more about what you're doing with these sort of events that you're doing with your team?
Sure. So our Instagram handle is just Luke Reynolds Hairdressing, all one word. My personal one is Luke C. Reynolds, all one word. I share obviously across both platforms. We have Facebook as well, but mainly our work Instagram is where we share most of it. But feel free, if anyone would like to reach out, you're more than welcome. I'll be happy to share anything that I can.
Great. Okay. Well, listen, I'll put those links in the show notes for today's podcast. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, I'll be in the show notes, and they'll also be on our website, growmysalonbusiness.com, in the show notes for this episode. If you're listening to this episode with Luke Reynolds and have enjoyed it, do me a favor, share it with people who you know would also enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app or wherever you happen to be listening to this. So to wrap up, Luke Reynolds, thank you very much for being my guest on today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast.
Thank you for having me, Anthony. It's been a fantastic experience. It was an absolute pleasure to share with you all, and I hope you all got a little bit of something out of it.
Good. I'm sure everybody did. I did too. So thank you.